So there is a team tournament going on called the Best Leaderboarders Tournament. Basically how it works is you've got the tournaments room on Pokemon Showdown running tournaments, and at the end of a certain cycle, the top leaderboarders end up entered into a pool, and they can be drafted for this team tournament. It features, I believe, every like standard tier, and it's in week 3 right now, so I thought, you know what? May as well go back, start looking at the older weeks, because we've seen some interesting teams get used, some interesting Pokemon get brought back into the limelight, and it's always fun to see what some users are trying to force into the metagame, what they're thinking is pretty nice. And look, shout out to Danny for suggesting I do this, because it's a good idea, especially while I wait for Sun and Moon Cup to end. As per usual, of course, if you are liking the content, make sure that you subscribe if you're not already subscribed. I'm on my way to 10K subs by the end of the year. We got this. I believe in y'all. Let's get into it. Now, let's just take a little cursory glance at all these teams and this little blue screen there. And there and there. So, a couple things to note, of course, is we still see like a ton of Slowbro on these builds. Like that mon has not disappeared. But a mon I want to draw a little bit of attention to, because we saw in how many games? 2. Inteleon. Inteleon right now is only in B rank on the VR, but Lucario had made a post before our last update saying that Inteleon should go up. I think he even said like B+ or A-, and I'm pretty inclined to agree with them now. The main reason we were so low on Inteleon at first, and it was down in B-, is because, in theory, the water absorbers we got were going to stifle it. You had Vaporeon, you had Gastrodon. A lot of stuff that maybe would limit them on. You had some new speed options, but now, well, the most common water type by more than a mile, by like 50 miles. The depth of the Mariana Trench is basically the difference in viability between Slowbro and the next best bulky water type. And it's not even a freaking water absorber. It's not even a mon that resists water. It's freaking Swampert. So when you look at the tier for Inteleon checks, yeah, we have plenty still, but it's got a much freer time than I think we anticipated it having coming into this new metagame. And I think we'll see a lot more Inteleon going further. Got some other things, of course, to note on these teams. Like in our first game here between Stories and my favorite new and newer, the Shinjin. So, fun fact about his team, this is actually based on one of those next big thing voting cycles. It's a little NU forum project. Put a Pokemon up, we have people submit sets that could be viable that you normally don't see. This is actually defensive Chandelure with Wispex. And then you've just got like a lot of standard goodness here, you know, Spikes on keys, probably Scarf, Crook, Spin Serena, Pivot Thundurus, and then really whatever you want to be on Dragalge. I would guess on this team, it's just going to be the standard supportive set, like maybe T-Spike. And its Stories has brought a Dudunsparce. Now, if you were playing NU before, I don't know, before like August, I would say, of last year, maybe a little later, you'll recall how good Dudunsparce was back then. Then we got Snorlax, it kind of fell off, and then people were starting to say, okay, never mind, maybe Dudun's actually a little better than Lax. And then we got another big tier shift, and we're like, okay, never mind, they both are trash. But we see it brought here, and it's actually got a very evil matchup. Even if you're thinking about just the standard Calm Mind set, and it doesn't even go into what this thing set actually is. But the standard Calm Mind Dudunsparce goes crazy here. We know this doesn't have Trick. What's Keys gonna do? You better be Trick Toxic Orb, and even then, I might be Terra Poison. Thundurus can't do anything if it's the pivot set. Crook isn't outputting enough damage, Serena, lol, and Dragalge after a couple Calm Minds even is lol. So like, you better have Dragon Tail or Haze or something. He loaded the absolute god matchup for this set. I can't lie, I can't lie. And there's some other mons you don't see a ton of right now. Gastrodon obviously is a pretty niche pick in the current metagame. I think it works pretty decently here though. You get water resistance, actually, and immunity. You get, pardon me, you get your ground type, you get your stealth rock, you get your Lycanroc check even. It could be like either of these technically. One of those has to be like physically defensive though to do it. Offers a lot on this type of build. I think it actually has a nice spot. Gallade, definitely a mon that Stories has shielded for quite some time, although I'm not. We'll get to it. If they're watching, they know what I'm saying about. Little standard Talonflame, probably Defog. unless you just feel like you're comfortable with enough boot spam on the team, but this isn't boot spam, so defog here, spikes here, and then Monkey Dory. From preview, I would assume Scarf, because Talonflame as your fastest mon otherwise is a little bit cringe, though it technically could be boots. So let's see how this game played out. Thunderous led with versus Gallade, and of course the reason for this is basically how you gotta look at Gallade, is it's a mon with very minimal defensive counterplay. It's not that we don't have defensive checks, because you can look at our tier. I mean, we have Slowbro, that is a check. It's not a counter, what you may think. That's a check defensively, though. Serena can be a check defensively, but it has to be defensive Serena and be, like, at full. You know, technically, Calm Mind Reuniclus is a check. Talonflame is technically, like, a defensive check. They're just so unreliable that the best way of beating Gallade, or at least minimizing its effort, is playing very offensive against it. Shinjin has the right lead here, with Thunderous at least threatening the acrobatics. So he goes for knock, knowing a switch there is pretty likely, and even if Story stays in, Thunderous should tank like one hit from full. And we see the Thunderbolt just weaken Keys, and knowing Keys probably doesn't want to get weakened too much because of the threat of like Dragalge later on. Goes for a nice U there. Spins on the Talonflame. Flame Body does get activated here, but he's got the Lumberry, so he's chill for now. And now here we see actually a knockoff, because he says, I'm chill with just getting rid of your boots. And it's justified. My guess is this is an error with team building. Justified used to be the ability you ran on Gallade, or at least it was a fine ability to use on Gallade. But naturally, nowadays you want sharpness. I'm just gonna assume there is not some hidden tech here that I've overlooked, and Story's defaulted to Gen 8 Brain and click Justified. It doesn't end up really mattering this game, but I did get a little bit of a laugh after seeing that. Good double knock here, predicting Stories to double switch out just because, you know, well, +1 Gallade is stronger than sharpest Gallade even, so. And then knock on Talon. Unfortunate that this thing has 100% flame body rate, but not the biggest deal. Thunderbolt's there. Now he's going to go for Grass Knot potentially there. And Story's just going to keep pivoting his Talonflame in. When she can, you may as well try and get the Flame Body again. But not working out like that so far. We see Shinjin remain very disciplined, though. Just keep firing off attacks. Eventually gets a nice pivot with the keys. And this is a very crucial trick, because now this also is going to struggle to keep up with Dudun in any way. It already wasn't going to beat it, but in case it had like Toxic Orb, it's actually pretty nice to get that item off of it now, because you don't even have to worry about terastallizing this versus Klefki specifically, which, hey, maybe you don't want a Terra, there's a Crocodile. So the keys now is a Scarf, it's no longer going to be all that useful, and now it's potentially even just setup fodder. As the Dong comes out to set rocks, no Splin Blocker on Story's team, unfortunately, but with this arena being burned, it is very good setup fodder for Dudunny, because now you just throw off a Calm Mind, or Toxic, either's fine. But you may have noticed I said Toxic. Yeah, this thing's a demon. So Stories ends up staying in here. Maybe knowing the set, I'm gonna be honest, I don't know if Stories was aware of the set the Shandy had. Maybe she's seen the team. That's my guess, though, as to why she Toxic, because otherwise I think you always have to switch there, respecting Specs or Scarf, because if you get tricked, well, this isn't really doing anything anymore, because you're just locked into Toxic there. Now, maybe the idea would still be that long-term, you can just throw off Boom Bursts, and that's still enough progress. But I don't know. Regardless, though, that looked like a god play going Dragalge on the Toxic there. Unfortunately, the Dudun's decided it wants to win now. So it goes for its +2. Dragalge's gonna flip, but now something has to come in and eat this big Boom Burst. As you see, Key's not really being able to hold up all too well. It can get off a paralysis, although will not be getting one off on that turn. This Calm Mind ends up being a little overkill, but helps shore up your chances against the Dragalge a little bit more. And as you're seeing here, we're going to see a trend here with this Dudunsparce. Great Toxic here, predicting Shandy to want to switch in. Chandelure, of course, is not going to be able to beat Dudunsparce 1v1 unless it gets, like, literally the best paralysis luck known to man. And we see Shinjin pretty quickly realize, oh wait, this isn't smart to stay in versus. Unfortunately for Stories, she Boom Bursted there, and she Boom Bursted here too, and got full paralyzed. And now the game became unnecessarily difficult. If Crook goes down, I think there's a high chance that the Dudunsparce was going to win. I don't believe we have much reason to believe. I don't believe we have much reason to think this was a haze or detailed Dragalge based on how it was played. And yeah, I mean, now it's like, okay, Stories could try to switch around the Thunders, but you're going to see real quick, this Thunderbolt still's doing 55. Talonflame is getting 2-shot past Roost very easily. So we see again, just trying to pivot a little bit for Flame Body, because if you get the burn on this, maybe you can double switch enough between Gastro and T-Flame to force it to just die to burn, or maybe get in range of an attack. But no. Shinjinir does just end up pulling the trigger and thunderbolting on the Talon switch. Keys, of course, here. Another mon that maybe could force the T-Bolt, but Shinjinir just decides it's better to U-turn there and not, deal with any of that. Good switch here, though, back to Thunders, knowing that Klefki being the switch in means that there is a Magnet Rise coming out, and now you just spam T-Bolt again. And the game is very, very over. Thunders will be able to wrap this up quite nicely. So I'm just gonna start skipping some turns here. T-Bolt pair there does not matter. Sneak actually does KO here, but you also have Scarf Crook to win the end game. Very unfortunate game. I do agree the Dudunsparce paralysis luck was pretty consequential. Technically, this never revealed Dragon Tail, but I'm inclined to believe that since Shinjinir didn't go to it pretty early, and then maybe like Terra Steel or something. I guess it could have been Terra Water, and then you're not tanking a Boom Burst very well anyway. But I think he would have gone to it a lot earlier if he was the phasing set. So, anyhow, next game. Dude actually using the Phantom Mystics sample submission that I have faced on ladder a couple times. So we know it's going to be Boots Monkey Dory with Terra Blast Ground, Black Glasses Stealth Rock Crocodile, Scarf Shao, Calm Mind Slowbro, Assault Vest Alolan Muck with Giga Drain, and then just your standard bulky Serena. I think it's actually on max speed though, max speed, max HP. Meanwhile, Team Charm actually has a very similar build here with the Serena, Muck, Mienshao, Burrowcore, but they've opted for a Specs Magnezone, if I'm not mistaken, based on calcs we see later, and a Rhyperior instead of Stealth Rock. So, one thing you notice he is doing here is leveraging that area as a Dark type. He doesn't need to double up on them, so you could run Rhyperior instead of Crocodile. Helps you maybe a little bit, just have a bit more defensive presence, gives you a better fire resistance as well. It could just always come in clutch if you're facing like Sun, for example, to have Rhyperior around. Helps a little bit versus mons like, say, Charizard, even Hisuian Typhlosion. Now, this team is Assault Vest on the Muck, so I don't necessarily think you need fire resistance. Plus, you could always just say, I've got Terastallizing on my side. And it makes things a little bit simpler. And of course, yes, this gets Solar Beam, but they don't run that. They don't run that. Don't worry about it. But what I noticed from preview for both teams is the ground type is very, very threatening, just optically. Rhyperior kind of just pressures this team endlessly if it's Mega Horn. Like if we're running Mega Horn, dual stab Stealth Rock, I don't really see the long-term counterplay. I guess some of it depends on Slowbro's Terra type. Now we know it's Terra Poison, but imagine it was changed, right? Because hey, maybe you're using a public team, you want to change up the set a little bit. We've seen people do that before. And a Crocodile is also just pretty impactful because Serena's not going to be a great check because Gunk Shot. Slowbro is a good check, but you still have to deal with potential Gunk Shot poisons if your opponent wants to really go risky with it. You still take a lot from Knock. If you have a Terra Poison, you're weak to Quake. Same thing with Terra Fairy being weak to Gunk. So, I think both teams have a really good breaker. And even the Monkey Dory on this team, pretty nice into this build because you've got Terra Blast Ground to hit both of these guys here. So, we're going to see Muckalola led with here. It's a pretty good lead from Team Charm because, as we see, there's not really anything that wants to switch into this necessarily outside of Crocodile or maybe a post-Terra Slowbro. Whereas with this Alolan Muck, it's going to have less longevity anyway, so you're pretty happy about facing that, but you've got your own Muck. You'll see why later. You also even have Rhyperior, which is an okay enough switch, and you've got Zone as well that can kind of pivot around it. We see that Knock early on. Doesn't really matter on Crook, but it does make it a little easier to switch in with the Serena, as we see a double switch out of Charm here, just knowing Gunk Shot's coming out. And you can get your Rhyperior in. You can throw up your Stealth Rock, you can throw off an attack. Either's pretty free here. Guy like me, I said it out loud as I was watching this replay. I'm like, a guy like me Mega Horns here. But we don't actually know if the Rhyperior has it, so it is what it is. His Muck will now come back out. You can just basically always get free knocks versus this team. It's very easy for Muck to make progress. And as you're seeing, since it's lefties as well, it's just going to constantly be at a higher amount of HP than the opposing Muck. And that's important for later on, because a lot of time you will see Mucks just trade hits. So if you've got lefties advantage, that can be pretty useful. Now, of course, they trade knocks. You lose that, but maybe your rest talk. It's all about, in my view, how I think AV Muck just lacks the sustain to truly be a metagame set for it. But you see, it at least has Drain Punched, get some HP back. Zone is double switched in, takes the knock pretty easily. And as y'all saw, there was hit of damage earlier that I was talking about with the zone that made me, I was watching, pretty sure it was Specs, was this hit on the Alolan Muck. So being able to get 60% of its HP away so early and so easily, very, very useful for Charm in the long term. And you do see him just trading a little bit of damage on the Serena as well, because this Mon can switch into the Rhyperior. It's like the second best or best defensive check available on Skier's team. So if you want Ripe to have an easier time just breaking, you want to get rid of Serena. And here, we see why I rate this Muck so much more highly in the matchup than Skier's. It is rest, so it's going to be able to sustain through to the entire game pretty easily now. As Rhyperior switched after the rest, you could throw off an attack if you really want. He knows he lives one Quake, and I guess he's fine leveraging that. Bro comes out, and it's not really too scared of the Mega Horn here. Could even be faster technically. We've seen some very fast Slowbro. If you know, you know. Well, the Muck now is going to have to switch into Shao, knowing Shao can at least take one Quake. It's going to take like 95, but that's not 100. And Shao just U-turn. And you notice that a lot of this game, I'm not really saying a ton of interesting stuff's going on. It's really because this is a battle of like repositioning for much of the game. The way I felt this game was defined was by Team Charm trying to force progress with the Muck, and even just Mian Chao's like U-turns and zones damage early. And then as we transition to the mid game, which we're at right now, it was mostly about just, again, repositioning, force the Terra when you can, like right here. As you're not going to lose to this thing Terra Poisoning. Now your Bro has the better matchup. But then you just try to slowly whittle it down from here on out. Get your hits in where you can with Slowbro, with Rhyperior, even with your Muck, with your Shao even if you need. And you should have the better long game. Unfortunately for Charm, their Slowbro is not Covert Cloak, even though we don't see an item, which tells me it's probably Helmet or Boots. Maybe we've seen the item. I haven't seen a switch into Hazards. But the Bro's able to Calm Mind up here. You would tank a knock, so Charm stays in, goes with a little Scald Chip. And here as well, you can tank the knock. We do see that it was a Boots Slowbro. Ends up slacking off instead of just taking a KO, but it is really good to keep this Mon at as much HP as you can, because it's going to be tasked with switching into that Crocodile, and even the Shao still. So you don't want to let it get too low. And smartly Charm as well. Even though you could have greeted for the KO versus Sarita here, you don't need to do that. And it's better to keep your natural typing so that you're not weaker to, say, like Monkey Dory or to the opposing Bro. So I do really respect the resistance to a greedy Terra kill. And as you see there, Shao taking 89 with Earthquake. Well, it's not 100, damn it. So good enough. And now, again, we just see the repositioning. The Bro can keep coming in, fishing for a little bit of damage. You don't have to get the KOs every now and then. You just gotta get your chip where you can and play towards potentially like me and Shao late game being enough to win. And since the Bro teared as well, this Monkey Dory can never really do anything to Muck, which is pretty good for Team Charm. As if Muck goes down, I mean, it's not the end of the world, but Monkey Dory itself becomes a lot more annoying to deal with, so you just like that. Monkey comes back out again, and I do like that Charm is just always scalding. You don't need to Calm Mind. Rick, take some damn notes. You can scald. Use the hot water, please. And as we said, I mean, it's just repositioning. Every time Bro comes out versus this Crook, it gets a free scald. Like, literally right here, you get potentially a free KO. Like, maybe they sack something and end up just giving a ton of damage on Crook. Now, this is a little bit unfortunate because now you're really low. But that's why we got Regenerator, baby! So now this Serena can come out, sack itself. You can even go back to Bro here if you really want, but Shao's just always better. Because you also want to regen this up. So now you bring back out your Slowbro, and then you can even switch out again, get your regen, go back up to over 60%, and you're just feeling great. Like, you can sack Rhyperior here at this point if you need. You can sack the zone as well. Kind of nice little pressure, Bro, but as we said, since this went for its Terra Poison, you do beat it with slow bro. Also, this is such disgusting damage. 37 from Crook? Evil. And we just see the Terra revealed here. Terra Steel and Rhyperior, just to make sure that Serena is not going to be doing any funny business. That's like a good spot to pick your KO. Because going Muck is just so slow. Makes the game go a lot worse, I think, for you. You just lose momentum. You get a lot of momentum by picking off Serena there. And you don't need your Terra to win this game. Like, what are you terastalizing in this game? Nothing. Because you want to stay your natural typing versus Slowbro. As you're going to see, they're going to go in a little Calm Mind battle. This Psyshock does nothing. What a one-shot if you were a poison type, by the way. And he's able to slack off because there's no heal block. And his Psychic Noise, 64. So, that's why you prefer to stay your normal typing. You can, again, just go for another slack off, just to stay at a nice HP amount. But as you see, I'm just dumb and wrong. This Team Charm went for another Psychic Noise instead, and it swapped out the Slowbro. Sacks his Muck, and then goes back into his Slowbro. Easily lives the CC, and then easily pops this in the mouth with the Noise of Truth. Very fun game, very fun game. Here's a very interesting matchup as well. So we see kind of exotic HO. The mons in general are pretty standard, although some of the sets end up being a little spooky. And by some, I mean like one. But Slip, I've never actually seen play NU before, so I know nothing about them. Although I do know that I respect a good HO team. I don't know how I feel about this one, because it's lead Lycanroc. You'll see that revealed pretty quickly. But I respect the hustle. It's still a strong mon, and being able to lead with a strong mon that do strong mon damage is never necessarily bad. Just not my cup of tea. But assuming Braviary here, in theory, is an insane matchup. Whether you're Sheer Force or Tinted Lens, I think Sheer Force is much better here, because you've got perfect coverage with Psychic, Flying Move, and in Heat Wave. So look to see that put in a lot of work. Whereas with Axertix, what I really like about his team, beyond the fact he's trying out Wo-Chien, which, hey, in a Slowbro meta, Wo-Chien, he matters. He's actually a really good Slowbro beater. It's not the most interesting interaction, but you got Rumination to keep it really low. Or try to keep it low, and you got Leech Seed to make sure that you never lose the 1v1. But what I think is pretty cool is just the Rhyperior plus Slash plus Talonflame interaction. Like, you technically don't have to be Stealth Rock Rhyperior in this type of game. Or this type of team, I should say. Because on Alola Slash, you could just go, like, Stealth Rock on that with Spin. And what's nice, too, is that frees up Talonflame. So Talonflame doesn't have to run Defog if it doesn't want. You can be, like, Brave Bird, Will-O-Wisp, U-Turn Roost, like we ran a lot in Gen 8 in you. So, just a lot of nice ambiguity going on with these first three. Maybe it's like SD Rhyperior, maybe it's like Protect even 3 attacks. I don't know, maybe your Sword Stance, Alola Stance. I should be trying to really be exotic. I also really like, though, the Inteleon matchup here, if we're just looking at an individual mon. Nothing on this team resists water, nothing commonly terastalizes into a water-resistant Terra type, and Inteleon outspeeds everything on this build. It's not one-shot by anything either that has priority, like Grimsucker doesn't take it out from full. Lucario E-Speed won't take it out without a boost. Just a very, very nice angle. So we'll see how both players can play to their strengths here. Inteleon's just led with, because yeah, there's nothing to resist water. We also see the fast U-turn come out. That's probably the more important part, but hey. Nice CC from Slip, though, just knowing in case Inteleon did go for the water move. You may as well catch it out. Maybe if you get rid of Inteleon, it's just a free KO, and then you're probably getting rocks up anyway, or you're rocking the Talon. So, good CC. And rocks end up going up, and the Lycan ends up sacked. Now, Grim here was out, and I expected to set up screens just because it's Grimmsnarl, but actually ends up being bulk up Grim. And very nice switch to Braviary. You're about to see this Braviary do some dirty, dirty things. Very evil and conniving. So, agility's up. And unfortunately for Axertix here, he does not hit with Stone Edge. So he takes 89 from the Life Orb Sheer Force Braviary. And this mon's not done. It's not done. It gets worse. He Terraflies here because he wants that Air Slash to do big, big damage. Forces Wo-Chien even to Terrastalize into a Dragon type. And yeah, I mean, you live, but you take so much. Now, unfortunately, Braviary is not going to be able to do enough damage, even with the Psychic here. So we see Grimmsnarl come out. Good prediction of a switch there to knock the Grim. Just nice to make a little bit of progress there. as Talon could come out, but instead, knowing that switch is too obvious, not wanting to let Braviary take a mile after giving it an inch, he just leech seeds. It's a double leeching even, thinking that a switch was possible, which I get, but doesn't happen. So a little bit of momentum lost here for Axertix, but it's not really a big deal. So now the Talonflame does come out versus Grim, easily eats a play rough. No flame body, but doesn't really matter. And here we even see its Flare Blitz, which is just incredible for this matchup. Denies Toxtricity entry, and that's really important since the Rhyperior was down. So now Braviary comes back out, assuming it lives a Brave Bird here. Or not a Brave Bird, a Flare Blitz. It can always go for another little boost to boost if it wants. So Agilities. Unfortunately, this is not a normal Sand Slash. This is an exotic Sand Slash. It's got Ice Shard and it's got Bright Powder as an item. Obviously that mismattered, but let's be fair here. It basically balances out that the Rhyperior missed Stone Edge earlier. So I like to believe that's just, you know, nice little evening it out. But yeah, I saw this use Ice Shard. I was just like, wait, does that mean it's Swords Dance or something? What am I looking at? The bro comes in though to Luke. Easily walls. They're off a Scald. He could potentially burn the Grim. He doesn't. But a Sand Slash now comes back out again, because Grim's not really going to have a lot that it can do. It could Drain Punch, but you might just be faster. And then get a little spinny spin. You should not be faster, though. I said that, and then I realized this Grim should always be faster, so take that away. He was just sacking Sand Slash and going for spin if he could. That's really all there was to it. As a Spike will now be set, and you can see this is a very impressive set. I don't think any of y'all have ever seen a Sand Slash with this setup of moves. Spikes, Ice Shard, Rapid Spin. Very, very powerful. Unfortunately for Mr. Slip here, the Grimmsnarl will be getting burned immediately by this Talon, and now the player off is not going to be able to do enough damage, and you get a free Roost to Roost off. Very nice. Very nicely done for Axertix here. He will now not be losing a Grimmsnarl. He still roosts back up to just make sure that he keeps the Talon full. Might be needed to keep Lucario contained, for example. Maybe he also wants to be able to exert a little more pressure on the Flygon. But as we'll see here, the Grim will just go down. Flygon will try to DD up after the Slowbro's Calm-Minded. I'm going to tell you right now, this is not happening. It also burned immediately, so yeah, it's super not happening. And we see Slip forfeit it. And now, a battle between a former new Inuer, Danny, and a... Wadley's not really a new Inuer either, but the current circuit champion, Wadley. You'll notice Wadley's got a very similar team to one that we saw earlier out of Team Charm. Literally the same 6 Pokemon. But, oh, wrong thing. Instead of a Serena, you got a Talonflame, which just means it's got a little ground immunity, which, respect. Respect it. Meanwhile, Danny, using Inteleon, like we said earlier, pretty nice Pokemon in the context of this current metagame. Rolled up with a pretty decent matchup as well. Muck is annoying to break, but it's not impossible. If you're able to get some rocks up and then maybe your Terra Water, you should be able to put enough pressure on it. Maybe you force a Terra out of it, that's not too bad either. He's also got just to fall back on to check the Muck. All of Registeel, Crook, and Plume, so it's not too big a deal even if Muck's coming out. And you'll actually see in this battle that the Inteleon's not even specs. It's presumably like boots with U-turn. So you can always Snipe Shot and then U-turn, bring out one of your checks to it, and you're sitting real pretty. The big threat is this Magnezone. Magnezone is an absolute monster here. It has to be Assault Vest Reuniclus on this team, otherwise Zone will literally 6-0 you. And as you're going to see, this Magnezone is a bit of a problem independently of that, based on the damage it does. So Shao led with, we'll see a U-turn here always. Daniel will always go Plume because you want to fish for the effects more if you can. And now you're going to see this problem here. This Teeple just almost 2-shot Reuniclus. Now, obviously, that's analytics, so it won't KO the next turn. But the damage it does is so insane, and very smart Wadley as well, to not try and take, like, an unnecessary trade there with Knock, because it's much better if he keeps the Magnezone with the specs. You're going to keep pressuring that Reuniclus very, very effectively, make it really easy later on for Slowbro to win the game if you're able to beat it down. And as you even see there, too, we're able to get a burn on the Registeel. That's pretty nice. Just makes it a little bit easier for things like Muck on your team to do some work. And we also see Inteleon. Not doing a ton with that Dark Pulse, but it is U-turn. Also neglected that it's not even Boots Inteleon. I remember it takes hazard damage later, so I think it's like Scope Lens or Mystic Water. So, some other item. E-Bell, I don't know. I'm not calcing. Then the Noiver comes out on the default. You can throw a Drake here. There's, you know, nothing that truly takes Drake amazingly. I mean, he got this, but that's a free switch afterwards, and you're pretty okay with that. Reggie comes back out on the T-Flame, and with this T-Flame's moveset, you're pretty happy just throw rocks back up. There's nothing that it's going to have that can actually threaten you, so you're chilling. And rocks are actually also going to go up on Danny's side here, which is kind of an annoyance long-term, you'll see, just because it puts that little artificial timer on the Inteleon. This Leech Seed miss ends up being kind of annoying, as again, as you see Reuniclus switches in, look how low it is. If you had a Leech there, this would not be a trade he could take. But then he misses focus, and this is basically the end of the game. Hitting him up with a powerful SMD. If you know what this means, you know what this means. And Danny is naturally, rightfully upset here. This kind of just seals the game. Like, Focus Blast would kill Magnezone. And yeah, I mean, now Zone's gonna keep getting ends on, like, Vileplume, and it's not good. You're trying to win. So Kirk comes out. You throw off an EQ, but Talon is a pretty likely switch. We also see that our Superior is just going to have Protect. So, I mean, now you have a litany of things you can go to here. He ends up still choosing to stay in an Earthquake, not really caring about that threat. As once again, we see Zone come out. And Danny does get a Leech this time, but Reuni is so low that it doesn't want to switch. So we instead see Registeel as the switch in, even though it's glorified Death Fodder. Because, I mean, you don't want Reuniclus to die. You kind of still need it to try and limit even Slowbro a bit more. He doesn't really get any better. Long term, this game is kind of just a slow loss. Because the Zone is just so oppressive. So, Noiver again comes out, gets a little bit of Drake Chip. It will die to the Rock Blast here. A little pop, pop. Take down Noiver. And here we see the Inteleon come back out. This is where I remembered it being revealed that this was not Boots. Would have been pretty helpful this game, I think, but realistically it wouldn't matter because there's the Shao. Shao can also always U-turn, so you gotta go Registeel here because you don't want to give them the Vileplume free pivot just to get his own back in. That's like how you lose the game. Or it's how you guaranteed lose. And then he does go for a Stone Edge here, basically just seeing, you know, hey, will Wadley stay in and give me a free Mon? I'm not entirely sure if catching Talon there would really matter, but it's still a good play. And we do see the Zone doubled, so Magnezone will be able to pick up a KO there with the Flash Cannon. Inteleon comes out, and unfortunately, even with its Terra Water, it's not going to be able to really do enough damage to the Muck. You see there, only 25, no crit. And then with Terastallizing, he doesn't get a crit either. Would have actually KO'd, though, there with Snipe Shot crit, so just a little food for thought. Plume will come out again, and I mean, the game is just very over. Sap's not going to be able to help enough. Zone gets back in eventually. Flash Cannon easily 2-hit KOs the Vileplume. And Emi and Shao CC does finish the Crook. So that was BLT Week 1. And what are the things we could take from this week? Well, Slowbro is still a very dominating force in the tier. I don't feel like it's dominating these games this week, but I think this battle here between Skier and Charm showcased, debatably, the unhealthy aspect of Slowbro. One of, I say the like there's only one of the unhealthiest aspects of Slowbro. And it kind of comes into context the rest of the metagame with how Slowbro does often have to burn Terra Poison, or often wants to burn it to like really get going. But when you're so commonly faced with these Slowbro mirrors, it's really punishing to do that, because then you guarantee lose to the opposing one. So I don't know. I don't even know if that's necessarily unhealthy. It's just one of the annoying parts of Slowbro, where you want to keep your normal typing on your own to check the opposing one, but you also are often wanting to Terastallize at other points. Maybe some people actually view that as healthy. You know, it helps actually add pressuring the Slowbro, even though you're checking with your own. Obviously, a Slowbro Terra Poisoning makes it weak to other things too that it would normally check otherwise, like CB Flagon, Crocodile, you're a lot weaker into if you have to Terra Poison. Ripurier, we talked about how you could get Mega Horned normally, but obviously Stab Earthquake's a lot scarier. Let me know your thoughts down below. What do you think of these games? Wow. I'll say. What did you think this stood out for y'all? Hope y'all enjoyed. I'll catch you in the next video. Peace.